One of the things that was so powerful for me in the opening of awakening in my life was yoga. I instantly started having experiences in my body that were related to the experiences that I was now having regularly in meditation. The thing was, it was getting me there in a fraction of the time. Energy was rushing down through it and things were opening up and stretching, and I was breathing more deeply, and my consciousness was grounded and seated in the body, but so expansive. Welcome back to another episode of the Art of Awakening podcast, where the art of living awake becomes a daily practice. Now, this is the point, right? It isn't about just learning about ideas. It's about learning how to live into these ideas and have a different life because of it. And so I'm thrilled to be here with you again for exactly that. I'm your host, Dr. Sue Morter. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome. And for those of you that have been around a while, welcome back. And I'm so glad to have you. We have an amazing podcast community building and are hearing wonderful things and feedback from people that normally wouldn't be necessarily in this kind of conversation, as well as people who are deeply into the process of awakening and a spiritual path and having a greater understanding about life, rather than just going through the motions that we have been indoctrinated into as a collective. So what I know about humanity at large is that we are actually here working it out. We're here working it out so that we can wake up to recognizing that we are in a game, if you will, of realizing our power, realizing our creative essence and our true nature, realizing our role in this life is different than surviving or getting by or fitting in or doing the things that we think we're supposed to do in order to make it work. It's really about recognizing all of the ways that we spend energy unnecessarily and stopping that, and recognizing ways that we could spend our energy more effectively to truly fulfill our destiny. Our destiny is to awaken as a creator in our lives. That is our destiny. And as we find different ways to do so, that project becomes very innovative and it becomes very fluid and it becomes an opening that brings great joy and an authentic outlook on life of anticipating what is next and leaning into it in a matter of discovery instead of digging our heels in and pushing back in a manner of survival. Your life is meant for this. And awakening, it means awakening to what I'm describing right now, to realizing this is a project that I am in. It is something that I am in, but I am not of. I am of a multi-dimensional makeup. I could be anywhere, but I've chosen to bring my consciousness here to this earth to have a physical, dynamic experience and exchange within which I get to know the truth of who I am and what I'm doing here. And as soon as we start to get a little bit of leverage happening, it picks up momentum and it becomes a joyous experience. And until then, it's quite painful, quite struggling. And so maybe you have days where you're totally on it. And maybe you have days where you totally forget that we're even having these conversations. And I also want you to know that that's part of it. It's part of it, is moving in and out of this illusionary project that we are in, so that we can eventually erase the boundary between in and out. And the whole thing becomes one process that we are in all the time, recognizing that we are here honing and refining our power. And as this began happening in my life, there were some tools that played a huge role in my ability to dissolve the barrier between remembering and forgetting. And it always seemed to focus back on my body. And it made sense because of all the places we could be right now, we've brought our consciousness to the physical dimension. So the physical version of us has a lot to do with why we're here. Our physical body has very much to do with how we translate life on Earth. We just have to learn how to turn on the circuitry to be able to hear and get the feedback that the body is giving us as to how we're doing at fulfilling our destiny, being a creator. And so if we're not doing very well, the body is tense, it's shut down, systems are exhausting, and our every compromise is right in front of us. And so we're here to receive that feedback with grace and to listen and to learn how to be transformational by using the mind on the body and using the breath to merge the two back together again in an amazing way. Because when mind and body and breath are working together, you are more powerful. You are able to be a creator in your life instead of a reactor or responder. First we're a reactor thinking there's nothing I can do about this. It's bigger than me. What am I supposed to do to have to deal with these people and these situations? And then we become a responsible steward and we start responding instead of reacting. And we feel very good about ourselves by not flying off the handle and saying things that we regret or doing things that are just compensatory actions that we take, and throwing a fit of some sort. And ultimately, friends, it's about moving from there again into a new disposition, and that is one of creatorship. Recognizing that you're not here to just be a better responder to what everyone else is creating. There is also an important piece, which is you leaning in, you carving a pathway, you allowing what is whole and true and right coming through you to come out into the world without stopping within, holding back, or shutting yourself down. And so when you blend mind and body and breath together, this becomes potent enough that you can do so. You have the power to transform a conversation into another angle. You have the power to listen with a different ear, to hear what's really being said instead of becoming reactive. You have the ability to lead instead of always only find a better way to follow. So one of the things that was so powerful for me in the opening of awakening in my life was yoga. And it was sort of by coincidence that I happened into yoga. When I started having my awakenings, I was not a yogi. I was becoming a meditator. And prior to that, I was just a survivor and doing my best to do good in the world. And I was successful, but it was very tense and it was hard and it was challenging always. And I sought out meditation because I was looking for some reprieve for the headaches that were starting to happen in my life. And so I began meditating and instantly started having transcendental experiences, multidimensional rememberings that were all coming to me, showing me, reminding me that this is not the whole of reality, this thing that we're doing here in these bodies, in this life. When you look out through these eyes and you're walking down the sidewalk or driving in your car, interacting with people, this isn't the whole world. It isn't the whole of reality. And I started waking up to that rapidly. And it was so rapid that my conscious mind was having a hard time wrapping itself around what was actually true. And yet I was experiencing it on a regular basis. And so years into trying to ground and anchor and, integrate these things that I was awakening to, I felt called to go to Bali. So I said to a group of students, I'm going to go to Bali, and I'm just feeling really drawn. And hands started going up saying, we're going to go with you. We're going with you. Let's go to Bali together. So we did. And as part of the package, the tour that I found to orient us, I found a guide that would take us to the types of places that I was interested in regarding the spiritual studies that Bali had to offer. And as part of this really program that they put together for us was yoga classes. So I went to the yoga class because I was the leader of the group and thought I should participate. So I had tried to do yoga a few times prior to that, but it never really amounted to much. I was more physical than that, and working out at the gym and running and lifting weights and that kind of thing. And so it didn't feel like I was really doing anything. And so I went to the yoga class, as a good leader does, shows up, right? And I instantly started having experiences in my body that were related to the experiences that I was now having regularly in meditation. The thing was, it was getting me there in a fraction of the time of what meditation was doing for me. It would take me 45 minutes or more to get into a certain state of consciousness and be able to bring that into my body. And now here in yoga, within the first 3 minutes of a class, or 5 minutes of a class, I was having these same these same experiences in my physical body, meaning energy was rushing down through it and things were opening up and stretching bigger, and I was breathing more deeply, and my consciousness was grounded and seated in the body, but so expansive. So I knew in an instant that there was something huge here for us in terms of integration, in terms of embodiment of what it is that we are accessing when we are building circuits and learning to meditate and trying to understand what in the world Dr. Sue's talking about when she talks about this bigger reality that we're actually all real a part of. Um, it all starts to come together when we start to allow all of the components to work together. And so it is this electromagnetic system that is able to move into body form through these geometries. I want you to just think about what happens when you go into a yoga pose. Most people are familiar with downward dog, where you're upside down like newborn toddlers are doing regularly as well. Or a warrior pose or tree pose. People are pretty familiar with those positions that we put the body in, whether you're a yogi or not. And what I want you to envision is that those positions that we're putting the body in are actually putting us in basic foundational shapes that allow energy to move more readily. So think about it, that knot in your stomach that you get, or the lump in your throat, or the tension that you've been carrying around in your shoulders forever. They all are you contracting and resisting something that's happening in your life. That's what happens. Your physical body responds in kind to your mind and emotional status that is in, resistance to something. So the physical body starts contracting, and now it really starts to impact you in all sorts of ways. It alters the way energy is able to flow through your body, and that actually alters your consciousness even more. The more rigid and tense you are in the body, the more your mind has to follow suit. So it starts with the mind, and it follows with the body, and then the body has an influence on the mind, and then the mind, takes it further, and then the body contracts even more, and they feed upon each other. It's just this beautiful dynamic that we can move in the opposite direction by returning to some basic fundamental positions that we can put the body in that will allow the energy to move freely again, the way that it's supposed to. And what happens is now the reverse. It signals to the mind that all is well. And when the mind relaxes, it signals back to the body, let's do this. And then the body opens even more, which gives us a sensation of feeling even better, a greater sense of self, a greater sense of peace, which then in turn creates this epigenetic environment back inside your body, little antennas on the surface of every cell, picking up this information and now creating chemistries, creating neuropeptides, creating synapses that are essential for calling in the message that all is well, the coast is clear, we can relax, we don't have to run from the bear or fight the bear anymore. And so this beautiful cycle works in the opposite direction as well. And so what yoga does is it puts us in these positions that allows this to happen. And when you do it every day, it puts you back in that position again and back in that position again. And even if you're going through a really rough time at work or a really difficult time in your relationship, when your body is placed in these, I'll call them sacred geometries, meaning they are basic and foundational to your being, it runs the energy through your system in a sane and organized and harmonized fashion, which allows you to be more stable the next time you have to sit down in one of those conversations and work it out, or the next time you show up at work and you have to, face the situation head on. You can come in as a solution in the project rather than someone who's trying to fend for themselves or defend their position or do all the things that we do when we're knocked off center or out of balance in some way. So there are no greater terms that, being centered and being balanced than what would equate to good yoga. It's all about activating all parts of your brain and body connected and collectively together. For instance, when you stand on one leg, and you can just do this while you're at the stovetop, next time you're fixing a meal, just work on standing on one leg while you're stirring the scrambled eggs or whatever it might be, and watch what happens, especially if you learn to breathe in the central channel, up and down the central channel, the way I'm constantly teaching people to do. What happens is it runs all that energy down one leg instead of dividing it between two. So the energy that's rushing down through the one leg is more potent, and it establishes a new sense of presence for your subconscious memory to memorize and relax into. And the greater sense of presence means the more comfortable you are in your own skin. And so that rushes up to the cerebellum, which is where subconscious memory is collectively stored. Now, it's stored in every cell of your body, but they report ultimately to the cerebellum through many of the spinocerebellar pathways in the nervous system. Interestingly, in the cerebellum is also housed subconscious memory. It's also housing your ability to maintain balance, your ability to know where your body is in space. So these two things, which are both vitally important to you, are kind of activating a common area in the brain. So the beautiful thing about it is when you're trying to break old habits and old patterns, you have to get into your subconscious to enable a rewiring. You have to tap into the parts that are in charge of running your body in an unconscious way, your habitual addictive patterns, and stir it up so that we can create new patterns. So simply standing on one foot allows you to also activate that same area of the brain. It gets you in there. And so if while you're doing that, you're central channel breathing, and you happen to be focusing on how you'd rather be able to handle that situation when it comes up, and you feel yourself and envision yourself handling it differently, handling it creatively or with a leadership sort of disposition, meaning you're gathered and you're collected and you know who you are and you're here to serve the situation rather than just survive and speak up for yourself, which is a much better way of living. It feels like an entirely different reality, and it's right here available for you. So when you stop and think about, oh my gosh, I can do something like that just by standing on one foot, I think I'm interested. I think I'm interested in that. So, so when we stand on one foot, it causes the cerebellum to assess more of what's going on. How am I going to get this? And you'll feel your body wobbling around a bit, etc. All the while, this stimulus response mechanism, this feedback mechanism is lighting up. It's lighting up and trying to figure out what's going on. So when you insert a new idea right at that same moment, now we have enough of an input into the nervous system to anchor a new memory. When we have more than one stimulus at a time, the system can gather that information, and it creates this engram. It's like a package of pieces of information stored together. We want those packages of information that are stored together to be affirming, to be aligned with who you really are and what you're here to do on this planet, versus those moments in your life that were based on survival, that stick out in your mind, when you were 2 or when you were 4 or you're 6 or you were 10 or 15 or 25 for that matter. So all is serving you if you let it. So what we're doing is learning how to breathe in a way, learning how to keep our attention in the body in a way that allows for transformation. So what was happening for me inside of these moments, 25 years ago, initially 20 years ago, 15 years ago, was building and building and building, was that I was recognizing that the more I anchored my consciousness in the core of my body while I was going through these yoga asanas, these positions that I now was very convinced were playing a huge role in my own transformation, my healing of a scoliosis, my healing of migraine headaches, my ability to heal injuries in record time without a lot of the traditional measures that many people were doing, like we're having to do, like broken bones and strains and sprains and those kinds of things. They were just healing. Made no sense, except that I knew there was something I was doing in every one of those situations, and it was what I now call body awake yoga. And the reason I call it that is that it's about anchoring your consciousness in the core of your body, where this grand central station, the central channel, the Sushumna, for those of you that know the Sanskrit term for that, resides. And it is where all things pass through energetically in terms of the ultimate energy body and how we heal and how we awaken. And so by bringing our consciousness into that very area of the body while we're going through these bodily positions, it anchors with greater and greater photon density, which means we're just gathering more consciousness at this core space. And what happens is it starts illuminating these aspects of consciousness that reside in different areas of our body, our gut, our heart, in between there, our mind and how we use it, our ability to speak our truth and manifest, and all of these things that we speak about so often, all of them now are being tuned into each other. And that changes the game. It changes it radically. It changes your ability to remember who you are when the going gets rough, when the tension gets high or the energy shifts. Here's what I know. You've had some experiences in your life that were traumatic. They were maybe moments, or maybe they were insidious dispositions in your family. Maybe there was an overbearing parent or an absentee parent or something along those lines. And so it created an environment that you grew up in, which has a certain tone to it, it has a certain energy to it. And anytime you are associating yourself or you're exposed to that similar vibration again, it throws you right back into the fight or flight that was there, whether you knew it or not. You might have grown up with it, so you didn't know that you were actually terrified most of your childhood. Or there might have been some obvious things. There might have been an alcoholic parent in the house that was throwing things and banging and clanging around. And so you have very lucid memories. But either way, there's a defense physiology that happens in your system under those conditions, or just a sense of confusion. And so anytime you're exposed to a similar vibratory frequency, your system goes right back into that state. No matter how much progress you've made in your life so far, if there are any remnants of that remaining, it will have that effect on you. You get what we call triggered. So one of the best ways that I know to be able to stay strong and steady in the face of any time that you're exposed to those kinds of vibrations again, that you are then able to remain lucid and clear and logical and present and loving. Anytime you are exposed to these things, if you're not able to, then there's some remnants in there. So one of the most profound healing practices in the world is yoga. It's something that you have to do every day. You don't have to do it every day, but it's something that you have to do regularly. It's something you have to do regularly in order to keep your energy flowing in those ways. And as you do, it little by little rewires all of those tendencies to react, those knee-jerk reactions, because it literally reprograms the packages of information that are stored together in that cerebellum, in subconscious memory. When those packages get disassembled, you're no longer at the effect of the outer world, and you no longer have to try to control your outer environment in order to avoid those frequencies. Okay? And when that starts to happen, you are free. That's what waking up is. That's what the art of awakening is. And so as we know that the work of yoga starts to teach us to monitor how we breathe and how we move the body and how we do that together at the same time. With Body Awake Yoga, I'm specifically saying, now pay attention to this chakra. Now breathe in this way. Now take that all the way up and out the crown of your head to a chakra that resides above your crown, and another one that resides above that you may not even realize. And now exhale all the way back down through the body to a chakra that exists below your feet into the earth, which you also may not be aware of. But we start to stabilize by building a bridge between the heavens and the earth, if you will, and we are that animated bridge between the two. In doing that, what ends up happening is we recognize that we are part of this greater reality. We're not apart from it. We are a living, breathing animation of it. In fact, by then, we're poising ourselves to be able to, we're positioning ourselves to be able to awaken to the fact that we are actually creating this entire reality that we are choosing to live in. And so, it's step by step. But this is the beauty of yoga. The more you go to the mat, the more you develop a most amazing relationship with yourself and with the cosmos, with the world, with the mat, with your own body. And you start to realize that it's all one thing. It's actually the truth of who I am. And there's a sense of belongingness that comes to be simply by the rewiring of our own identity as we're embodying into this presence. It's an amazing process that happens. I love yoga because it's a testament to self-care. And if you just show up to that mat every day, even if you just step on it and sit down and say, I can't stay today, but I'm not forgetting how important you are. And then you get up and walk off of that mat, you've done yoga. This is what I want you to understand. You don't have to be bendy, twisty, rubbery. You just have to have a singular focus on a devotional piece of your life that will start to land you and bring you home. And this is what Body Awake Yoga is emphasizing, is showing you how to get the most out of the 5 minutes that you do have today. If you have 10 minutes, here's what you do. If you have 30 minutes, hallelujah. I love to have long classes with people because they get so deeply immersed inside of their own consciousness while they're putting the body in motion. And when they do that, what ends up happening is an amazing ability when they step off the mat to be in motion in life and remember who they are. It's like we come to the mat to figure out who you are, so that when you're off the mat, you can remember who you are. You're exercising it. You're moving the body in these patterns that allow the energy to stay robust. And when you're learning about where to pay attention inside the body with a particular movement, or moving from one asana position to another, if you know what's actually happening and learn to trace the movement of that energy, there is nothing like it. You will never be compromised the way that you have been in your life in the past. I know in the most stressful moments of my life, since I learned yoga and since I developed Body Awake Yoga, have been smoothed over so dramatically because of my time on the mat. And if I have ever allowed life to pull me off of the mat for extended periods of time, I feel it immediately. I feel it. I feel as if I am the person I was before all this happened, if I let it go on too long. So I just know. I know what to do to stay in the flow and to stay identifying as the one who is capable of this life that we're living. And so it is a beautiful way for you to recognize, remember, and establish a new version of who you are. So what I mean by body awake is literally to awaken the energy that we are made of, awaken the patterns that flow through us so that they become conscious and intentional instead of just dormant and reactive. And that is what happens when we're too sedentary for too long. We live in our heads too much of the time. That combination is lethal when it comes to a sense of personal presence and power, liberation, freedom, and awakening. And so the invitation is find your way to a yoga mat. I'd love for you to find your way to a Body Awake yoga class with me, which we, a few times a year we have complimentary yoga challenges out in the community. Just stay tuned for those and plug into them when they are happening so that you can be a part of it. And once you start to feel what happens when we're anchoring the consciousness inside of a simple spinal twist, which you can sit in a chair and do. You don't have to be on the mat even. You can sit in a chair and breathe along with me and recognize what it is I'm talking about. It will change you forever. It has definitely changed my life. My ability to live into the spaces that I meet in meditation, my ability to embody those and let them pour into this life, which has resulted in an ability to heal, an ability to remain flexible and buoyant and pliable and malleable in life, flexible and spontaneous, and my ability to generate abundance in my life is I definitely attribute it to my time on the Body Awake yoga mat. 100%. I had these openings 25 years ago, but it wasn't until I learned to embody them, the principles that they represent, that it began to change my life at all. So I have watched it change so many people. I have no doubt that it would change those things for you as well. So, in any way that you can drop in, plug in to some of that, I highly, highly recommend it. Your body it's an opening. It's an opening. It is, think of it as a portal, to the rest of who you are. If it's tender or sore or stiff or, not very, pliable or doesn't heal very easily, it isn't a problem. It literally is revealing to you how you're doing at implementing the truth of who you are, which is a multifaceted, multidimensional being here in the physical world. We want that to be true through and through. So that is what the Art of Awakening is all about, and it is definitely what Body Awake Yoga is all about. This movement of this energy helps you remember your wholeness. And so I'm hoping that you're feeling motivated and inspired today to maybe just breathe a little differently. Breathe in your belly, drop your shoulders, lean back and against your own spine and allow this channel to open up. And then remain that way as you go into some spinal twists or sit down onto the floor even, and stretch your legs open and forward fold and breathe up and down that central channel while you're doing the same. And if you start to feel anything shift, and I know you will, then know that there is a world of Body Awake Yoga available for you, if that would be a part of your own awakening that you feel drawn to. There are multiple ways for you to join the yoga throughout the year. We have the live online classes. I also have a live class that I teach every month. You get 2 new classes every month, and you have access to over 100 archived classes as well. So we are definitely here for you. Whether you're new or returning, there's a path for you, which you can find in the show notes. Okay, so I want to thank you for leaning in to listening to what could better your life experience, because the more we do that, the more we change the world, and the more we create a critical mass inside of our communities to be able to sustain exchanges and daily living in a way that truly honors the potential of who we are as humans. And in these times, in these days, it's never been more important to do so. So thank you for spending the time with me today on the Art of Awakening podcast, and blending spirituality and science every day to empower you to create a life that you truly love. So don't forget to like and subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. We have an amazing growing community, and together we are more. So until next time, I'm Dr. Sue Morter. Blessings to you. Namaste.